Hello and welcome back to Exotic Care. My name is Ben and today I'm going to be talking about my top 5 dream pet reptiles, the absolute bucket list species that I would love to work with one day. These aren't necessarily beginner animals, in fact most of them are quite advanced, but they're all absolutely incredible in their own way. So let's get straight into it. An honorable mention has to go to the emerald tree skink, also known as Laprolepis smaragdina. Emerald tree skinks belong to the family Cincidae, with other species from the family being the blue-tongue skink, the fire skink, and the monkey-tailed skink, along with like 1,500 other species. These guys come from Southeast Asia and parts of the Pacific, living in tropical forests. They're much smaller than the other animals on this list, only growing from about 8 to 12 inches. What makes them special, though, isn't just their bright emerald green color, but also their incredible personality. Unlike most reptiles, they actually do really well in groups and are known for being very interactive and curious. Some will even voluntarily climb onto your hand. They're often described as one of the most friendly reptile species, often jumping straight onto your hand once they're used to being around you. But like every animal, it takes a bit of time for that to happen. They are omnivores, eating things like insects and fruit-based diets, with paste substances like Pangea or blue river diet being great options, along with actual fruits. Their enclosure size should be around 3 feet long, 2 feet deep, and 3 feet tall for a group of 3 or 4. They are a more tropical species, so their temperature requirements are around 26 to 30 degrees, which is like 78.8 to 86 degrees Fahrenheit. They have a humidity requirement of 60 to 80%, which makes sense based off where they're from in the world. General setup ideas should be a more arboreal design with a lot of branches, hiding spots, and plants to mimic their natural environment. I do actually plan on getting some of these guys in the not too distant future, so that's something to definitely look forward to. But yeah, that's kind of number 6 on the list. But my top 6 dream reptiles doesn't sound weird at all in a video title. Starting off the list at number 5, we have the frilled dragon, scientifically known as Chlamydosaurus kingi. Kingi, I don't know, it's all Latin to me. Also, please excuse the mouse in my hand. I'm reading this off of notes. I don't have all of this memorized. This is a script. If I can memorize all the information I'm about to spew at you right now, I'd be very impressed with myself. However, I'm not that good, so I'm reading it off of notes. Um, the frilled dragon is native to northern Australia and southern New Guinea, where they inhabit warm tropical woodlands and savannas. They're mostly arboreal, spending a lot of time climbing trees, but they'll also come down to the ground to hunt occasionally. The frilled dragon belongs to the Agamidae family, with bearded dragons, water dragons, uromastyx, which are also known as spiny-tailed lizards, and dracos or flying dragons. Now that's a cool lizard. They typically grow around 2 to 3 feet in total length, with large portions of that being their tail. Of course, their most iconic feature, though, is the huge frill around their neck, which they flare up when they feel threatened. It makes them look significantly larger and is definitely one of the coolest defensive displays in the reptile world, if not the whole animal world. A bit like the Dilophosaurus, except this one won't chase you into a jeep and eat you, or spit venom at you and blind you, which takes the coolness factor a little bit down, but still, it's basically a dinosaur. How cool is that? Diet-wise, they are mainly insectivorous, especially when young, but adults will still eat insects like crickets, locusts, cockroaches, the occasional small vertebrates like pinky mice, and sometimes even plant matter or fruit. So they eat quite a wide range of foods. For care, they're intermediate to advanced level with a minimum enclosure size of around 4 foot long, 2 foot deep, and 4 foot tall, but ideally larger because the height is so important for these guys. Being from Australia, they naturally need quite high temperature basking spots of around 35 to 40 degrees Celsius, which is about 95 to 105 degrees Fahrenheit. Please don't come for me in the comments if that's wrong. I'm not American, as you can quite clearly tell. I don't know Fahrenheit. We use the correct system over here. Sorry. And ambient temperatures of around 26 to 30 degrees Celsius or 78.8 to 86 degrees Fahrenheit, I think. Their humidity should be moderate, about 50 to 70% with regular misting, and they, unsurprisingly, require quite a strong UVB level. They need plenty of vertical climbing space, branches, and foliage to feel secure. They are generally solitary, especially the males, which can be quite territorial. However, females may sometimes be housed together as long as there's enough space. Behavior-wise, they are super interesting. When startled, they'll often stand up on their hind legs and run, which looks hilarious, but is also really effective in the wild because they are quite quick. However, coming in at number 4 is the sailfin dragon, especially Hydrosaurus celebensis. These incredible reptiles are native to Indonesia, particularly Sulawesi. They are named for their large sail-like crests along their tail and back, almost looking like a modern-day Spinosaurus. The Sulawesi black sailfin dragon also belongs to the Agamidae family, along with the frilled dragons mentioned before. They typically grow about 3 to 4 feet long and weigh about 1.5 to 3 kilograms, which I think is between 3 and 5 pounds, which is surprisingly lighter than I originally thought. But then, if they were too heavy, they wouldn't be able to swim as well as they do. They're semi-aquatic omnivores, eating things like fruits, leaves, insects, and other small animals. Their enclosure requirements typically have to be quite large and both arboreal and aquatic, which can be quite difficult to keep in captivity. Typically, a minimum of 6 feet long, 3 feet deep, and 6 feet tall, which is almost as tall as me. I'm 6'1", so that's kind of insane for a reptile to have an enclosure that's as long as this Bavarian here. This one's for my corn snake. This is 6 foot long, 2 foot deep, and 3 feet tall. So imagine this twice on top of each other. That's insane. Also, very expensive unless you build it yourself. Then that's kind of a cheaper alternative. As they are a semi-aquatic species, they'll have to have a reasonably large water feature so they can express that natural swimming behavior. And they should have a basking spot that sits around 32 to 35 degrees, which is something like 89 to 95 degrees Fahrenheit. They should have a humidity range of around 70 to 90% because they are from tropical rainforests. They benefit from plenty of climbing space and dense planting to recreate their wild habitat. They can sometimes be kept in very small groups, but space and careful monitoring are crucial with that. So it's probably best to keep them alone unless you have a huge enclosure or plan on breeding them or something like that. They are quite shy, but can absolutely be stunning display animals. And of course, like most other reptiles, they can become quite hand tame. Sorry, words are hard. But yeah, that's the sailfin dragon. And at number 3, we've got the caiman lizard, the Dracena guianensis. I think I might have butchered that. Sorry. These guys are native to South America, particularly the Amazon basin. They live near water and are semi-aquatic, often found swimming or basking near rivers. Caiman lizards belong to the family Teidae. I think that's how you say it. Maybe Teidae, I'm not sure. Which is a family of roughly 150 species, such as whiptails, tegus, and amebas, native to the Americas. They can reach sizes of about 4, maybe 5 feet long, making them quite a large lizard. Their diet, though, is really interesting. They specialize in eating snails, which are their favorite. Crustaceans and other aquatic invertebrates are also part of their diet. The caiman lizard possesses an exceptionally strong bite, adapted for crushing hard-shelled prey like snails. Care-wise, though, they are extremely demanding, with a huge, absolutely huge enclosure requirement, something ideally like 8 foot long, 4 foot deep, 4 foot tall, or even bigger, with a large water area for swimming. Their basking temperature should be about 35 to 95 degrees, with an ambient temperature of the high 20s, so anything upwards of, say, 26 degrees. They require humidity levels of 70 to 90% also. They are generally solitary animals and can be quite defensive, especially if not socialized early. Because of their size, strength, and specialized care, they are definitely not for beginners. Coming close to the end now, I promise, don't worry. Up next is the Fiji banded iguana, or Brachylophus fasciatus. These beautiful iguanas come from the Fiji Islands, of course, living in tropical forests. They're known for the bright grey colorizations, with the bold white or blue banding, especially in males. Fiji banded iguanas belong to the Iguanidae family, obviously, along with green iguanas, marine iguanas, blue iguanas. Anything with iguana in the name is in this family, alright? Leave me alone. They are one of 4 iguana species in the Fijian Islands, the others being the Fiji crested iguana, the central Fijian banded iguana, and the Gao banded iguana. I'm not saying the Latin names for all of those because I can't remember them, sorry. They typically grow to about 2 feet total in length, including the tail. A large portion of it is the tail. Diet-wise, they are primarily herbivorous, feeding on leaves, flowers, and fruits. However, they can be fed bugs on a rare occasion, kind of like a treat, like you give chocolate to a kid. In captivity, you provide things like collard greens, dandelion greens, and occasional fruits as well. However, Did you know that Fiji iguanas are illegal to own in the United States? This is something I learned not too recently, and I find this hilarious. This is because they're protected under an international law known as CITES Appendix 1. That's the highest level of protection, and it basically means there's no legal commercial trade allowed. So you can't import, export, buy, or sell them as pets. On top of that, US laws like the Endangered Species Act make it illegal to own one without very, very specific permits. And those are typically only granted to zoos, conservation programs, or researchers. So for private keepers, they are essentially off limits. Another big reason is the pet trade itself. The iguanas are incredibly striking with their bright green bodies and blue banding, which make them a target for illegal collections and things like that in the past, and it's still a huge problem today with people taking them from the wild and selling them in illegal pet trades. It's disgusting. It shouldn't happen at all. But a lot of individuals outside of Fiji actually came from poaching, so that's kind of how they came into captivity, which obviously puts even more pressure on wild populations. But luckily, I live in England, so that doesn't apply to me. Ha! They require tall arboreal enclosures with a minimum of 4 foot long, 2 foot deep, and 4 foot tall for one adult. They require a basking temperature of around 32 to 35 degrees, which I think I've said before, 89 to 95 degrees Fahrenheit, and ambient temperatures in their mid 20s. Their humidity should be around 60 to 80%, but that can get higher when shedding, potentially even up to 90%. They need a strong UVB light as it is essential for proper calcium metabolism, same with all the other species. Plus, it recreates the natural environment because they'd be in the sun quite a lot. So, you know, better UVB equals better sun, basically. They can be kept singly or in very carefully managed pairs, but males can be territorial, so you will have to be very cautious. They are generally more delicate than common iguanas and require consistent environmental stability. Finally, we have the blue tree monitor, my absolute dream species that I wanted to own for as long as I can remember. Scientifically known as the Varanus macraei, they are in the Varanidae family, which includes the Komodo dragon, crocodile monitor, and basically every monitor lizard species on the planet. These guys are native to the very specific island known as the Batanta Island in Indonesia, where they live in tropical rainforest environments. As their name suggests, they're arboreal, meaning they spend most of their lives in trees. They grow to around 2.5 to 3 feet in length, sometimes a little bit bigger than that, with long tails making up most of that size. Their striking electric blue coloration with black patterning makes them one of the most visually stunning monitor species in the world. In terms of diet, they're insectivorous to carnivorous, feeding on things like insects, small rodents, eggs, occasionally even small birds like quail. For care, they are definitely advanced level reptiles with a minimum enclosure size of 6 foot tall, 4 foot wide, and 3 feet deep, which is almost this, a foot taller, a foot deeper, but obviously bigger is always better due to their arboreal nature. I personally would want to go with a longer enclosure to allow them to fully stretch out. Uh, yeah, so probably 6 foot tall, 6 foot wide, and 2 feet deep, 3 feet deep, maybe. I'm not sure. They require a basking spot of around 45 to 50 degrees Celsius, which is 113 to 122 degrees Fahrenheit, which sounds insane. And ambient temps of around 26 to 30 degrees Celsius, which is 78.8 to 86 degrees Fahrenheit, as I mentioned before. They need a high amount of humidity, around 70 to 90%, and obviously they require tons of vertical climbing space, branches, cork bark, and dense foliage for the natural environment factor of the vivarium. They are generally solitary and can be quite shy, especially when young. However, with consistent, calm interaction, they become a lot more confident. So yeah, those are my top 5 dream reptiles, all amazing, all challenging, and all animals I would love to work with one day. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to like, subscribe, and check out the rest of our content here on Exotica, and let me know in the comments, what are your dream reptiles? But anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.